else. Want to get out of here?
Animation as a medium allows us to tell stories in a much more vast way than you can in live action. We have the ability to change and control absolutely everything within the picture plane.
We did so much on that first movie that was out of the comfort zone of an animated feature film, and it became clear that people wanted more. We're opening up many more worlds.
Making each world look like it came from a different artist's hand or a different style of comic book allowed us to push different chapters of the movie in wholly different directions.
All of their inspiration is taken from comic book artists, different fine artists. We've had to create a new tool set in order to hit all of these different looks.
What's special about this movie is that we can have each universe be its own complete distinct look and cinematic language. Each world is wholly distinct and unique and really unlike anything you've seen before on film.
We go to all these really incredible, distinct worlds that all have a philosophy behind how they look, how they move, and even the technology within them.
Let's do things differently.
The look for Gwen's world comes from her comic books, and there's a lot of unusual color choices. In our world, the primary colors are yellow, red, and blue. In her world, there are cyan, orange, and violet.
Gwen's world, it's a very wet medium. It's very brushy. We have dripping paint.
It was more of a loose watercolor style, along with influences from the comic books, which had these graphic cutouts.
There's a lot of vertical brush strokes. So we took that and we actually amplified that. One of the things we really liked in her world was color doesn't always respect the boundaries of objects. A lot of times within the silhouette, the colors would blend through the objects.
I thought it would be so cool to, rather than tell people what she was thinking every second, to just have the environment change, just react to her emotions like a mood ring. And in real time, shot for shot, you can watch what she's thinking change on screen behind her. Whatever she's focused on becomes the only thing on screen, and the rest of the world falls away.
In the beginning of the movie, we have this big scene in the Guggenheim Art Museum where Gwen has to go in and take on the Vulture.
Gwen, she's from Manhattan in this universe, so we picked a recognizable landmark that was unique to her world and her experience. The Guggenheim is an iconic piece of architecture and a touchstone of New York City. This clean expression of modernist design, juxtaposing the Da Vinci-style Renaissance-era drawings of the Vulture, gave us a great opportunity to sort of do the old versus the new in one setting. It's an incredible arena to put a big battle in. We burnt part of it down, we blew part of it up, and it was something you could only do in animation.
Who's the new guy?
Mumbai is a combination of Mumbai and Manhattan. It's the home of Pavitra, Prabhakar, Spider-Man India.
Dang. The challenge of creating the world of Mumbai was how do you take the busyness and the grandeur and the scale of Manhattan and interject the even bigger, grander, busierness of Mumbai and India into one setting.
We wanted to feel like it was this endless chasm of city. The first concept for it was that the Hudson had been drained and a city had been built in this giant gulch. So what we did with our camera was, rather than moving through the city horizontally, we were moving through the city vertically. And when you look down, it needed to look like it went on forever.
Woo! We started building basically New York on top of a New York on top of a New York, and a celebration of Indian culture just injected into the whole thing. And so we've got traffic going in every different direction. We've got buildings on tops of buildings.
Quick tour. This is where the traffic is. This is where the traffic is. This is also where the traffic is. There's traffic here too.
I did in Mumbai some of the art on the walls, some of the posters you see around, some paintings. I used like 4 different languages to make those art pieces so that every part of India is kind of represented, like from Tamil, Hindi, Marathi. For the world itself, we were inspired by these Indrajal comics and Amar Chitrikatha, which were these comics I grew up reading. So it was incredibly satisfying to translate that into this 3D world.
What we loved about the comics was the black of the ink didn't necessarily line up exactly where the color was. And at times it looked like where the printing process might have sort of fallen short, somebody just got in there with a paintbrush and started painting stuff.
The offset printing quality evokes a certain feeling. So we wanted that imperfection with the world.
These beautiful color palettes, the way in which they handle detail, the more brushy ink work, bringing all that into then what is the biggest, largest version of Manhattan you could ever imagine, created this wholly unique world of Mumbai.
I'm Miguel O'Hara. I'll take it from here.
The challenge of creating Miguel O'Hara's world in Nueva York was to take something that feels futuristic, and yet Miguel represents this authoritarian figure, the old guard. So now we have this challenge of it's the new, it's the future, and yet it's the old and the established. And so we rolled back the clock a little bit and looked at what were the futurists doing in the 70s and 80s.
We go into 2099, which is more architectural based, very sort of Sid Mead inspired, very clean, dry brush type painting.
We also looked at Latin American architecture, and particularly Burl Marx, who has these really cool shapes that you'll see like repeated all throughout the movie.
You can see the underdrawing in the sketch and then the loose painting and markering that they would do in those concept art things from the 70s and 80s that permeates that world. And the farther away you get from camera, the more unfinished and sketchy it is.
It's almost like the artist is drawing it under camera at times, trying to keep up with the pace of the action that's happening, but it's always kind of slipping away.
We also drew inspiration from a comic called Space 1999. You could feel the markers, you could feel the hand of the artist trying to figure out what the future was going to look like.
It had some really cool effects. What was in light would be rendered. What was in the shadows would just be flooded with a color or a light. And you'll see that in scenes like when Miles first meets Miguel. He's got kind of a solarized light on his face.
We really grabbed the artist desks of the 80s and used that as our tools to create this world of the future.
This is unbelievable.
We literally made 5 movies at once, and they all have their own extremely unique qualities, and they all take just as much effort to design as one single movie would. Patrick has done an incredible job helping me come up with a vision for those, establishing those looks, working with his team to develop these incredible styles that I'm just blown away by. It's awesome to watch him bring it to life.